You were born with power. Not the power of position or rank or money. The power of your own authentic self. Your gifts, your purpose, your capacity to do and to make the world around you better. And most people are going to give that power away. Slowly, willingly. And they're going to give it to every system that asks for it. So, how long are you willing to give away your power? This episode's about taking it back. My name is Colin Charles. This is Enoch Marketing, and we're getting into Law 15 of Robert Greene's book, Laws of Human Nature. This one is called Make Them Want to Follow You. He begins by talking about the difference between different leaders and making them want to follow you. Truthfully, there are two ways to go about this. One is with coercion, and one is by garnering commitment. So we're going to avoid making them comply. We're not here to make people obey and not make them fear you enough to stay. We're talking about making them want to follow you. And the distinction is imperative, and it is the synthesis of every law that has come before this one. Greene argues that the person who has done the integrated work, by integrating their shadow, by having an elevated perspective, by securing their ego, by advancing with purpose, by resisting the downward pull, becomes a person that the world does not very often produce. Someone who is fully themselves. And the fully realized self is a magnetic person in a way that no performance, no strategy, and no manipulation can replicate. It is that realized self that is just the beginning of stepping into one's own power. He contrasts two types of leaders. On one end is the coercive leader, who creates compliance through fear, obligation, or manufactured dependency. I like to refer to that person as the pimp. And then there's the ethical leader, who creates genuine followers through the force of their own authentic character. The coercive leader builds a following that lasts exactly as long as the coercion lasts. But the moment that the fear or dependency is removed, their following dissolves. The ethical leader builds something that outlasts them, because their following is not attached to the leader's position or their power. It's attached to what the leader represents. Greene writes, "The goal is not to create followers who depend on you, but followers who are inspired by you to find their own power." There's a line from a film called Kingdom of Heaven, one of my favorite movies. It's from the early 2000s, that this chapter reminds me of. And it shows up in the very beginning of the movie. It's written on a banner in the blacksmith's shop that reads, "What man is a man that does not make the world better?" And that question carries the essence of the entire law. And the answer Greene gives is this, is that the person who has done the work and is living in their purpose is the person who's making the world better. The people are drawn to that presence. They want to follow it, not because they're told to do, because something in them recognizes the character, and it is something that is real. That character that the person has becomes the basis of their legacy and the betterment of humanity. The historical anchor that he uses for this chapter is Queen Elizabeth I, also known as Elizabeth Tudor. Shameless plug off script. She is so badass. Absolutely amazing leader. Great political example. Just amazing. So we're going to tell you her story in the way that it deserves to be told. Not only as a symbol of feminine achievement, but also as a human being who was faced by extraordinary circumstances and chose an extraordinary response. Elizabeth Tudor was born in 1533. She was the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, B-O-L-E-Y-N. Anyway, her mother was executed when Elizabeth was 2 years old. She was charged with adultery, the mother, and treason, and Elizabeth was declared an illegitimate child. So she grew up with no guarantee of safety, no certainty of status, and no clear path to power. But she was brilliant. She studied Latin, Greek, French, Italian, and Spanish. She read philosophy and history. She was educated with the rigor that most men of the time never received. And she just paid attention. She observed everything that was happening around her with extraordinary precision. And when her half-sister Mary, also known as Bloody Mary, became the queen, Elizabeth was imprisoned in the Tower of London at the age of 21. Elizabeth, suspected of treason, knew that the wrong word, the wrong letter, the wrong association could have meant execution. And she survived by being impossible to convict, above reproach. She was careful, measured, and she gave nothing away. Queen Elizabeth became Queen Elizabeth I in 1558, at 25 years old. She inherited a kingdom that was religiously divided, it was between the Protestants and the Catholics, financially exhausted, and surrounded by hostile powers. She carried herself with a humility and charm that allowed her to connect to the common people. And in those days, the greatest adversary, Spain, was the most powerful empire in the world. France was still a constant threat to the English kingdom. And every advisor at her court told her to do the same things. Mostly, and most importantly, to get married immediately, to secure the succession and give the kingdom a male ruler. But she refused. Not out of stubbornness, but out of strategic genius, because she understood something that her advisors did not. In the moment that she married, she would have become subject to her husband's will. And because she would have to marry royalty, it would have been more likely that the person that she married would have been more politically aligned to his original country and less aligned to the political position of England. So if she were to get married, her political independence would have vanished. So she leveraged every foreign power would have evaporated, and she would have become queen in name only. So she cultivated a persona, the persona of the Virgin Queen. She belonged to no foreign dynasty. She owed loyalty to no husband. She was England incarnate. And she made every potential suitor, from the King of Spain to the Duke of Anjou, believe that they had a chance with her without ever committing to any of them. So for decades, she turned the vulnerability of being an unmarried female monarch into the most powerful diplomatic tool of her era. She was also known for not engaging militarily with any of the other countries and only defending the assets of England, because she knew that engaging in war on any front would further plunge England into economic turmoil. In 1588, the Spanish Armada sailed against England. 130 ships with 30,000 men. And it was the greatest naval force the world had ever assembled. And her advisors advised her to retreat into safety. Instead, unafraid, she went to Tilbury to address the troops directly, on horseback and in armor. She said, "I know that I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and the stomach of a king, and a king of England too." During that naval campaign, the Armada was destroyed. Not primarily because of the English naval power, but by the storms between Spain and England. The propagandists called this the Protestant wind, and England became known as a naval power. And the era that followed was the result of Queen. During her reign, there was a flowering of English culture and global influence. Shakespeare, Marlowe, Sir Francis Drake, Walter Raleigh, all began their careers during the Elizabethan era. All of it happened under her watch. And all of it was made possible by Queen Elizabeth refusing to be sorted into any category. She integrated every energy available to her, and she made the people want to follow her. She ruled for 45 years, and when she died in 1603, there was weeping in the streets of London. Not as an act, but because they genuinely grieved a glorious queen. So my thoughts on this are thus. That quote that we began with, "When are you going to stop giving up your power?" was a question that was asked to me by a Mr. Nathan Neighbor at a Gap community training. He had gotten to know me at this point, and I was in a position where I was eager to give up my power to whatever authority that I was a part of. That included teachers or whoever was leading any experience, the church, the military, coaches, etc. I had taken a position willingly where I was willing to follow whomever I thought was in charge. I'm also a middle child, so it happens. And he asked me that exact question. When are you going to stop giving away your power? And let me tell you, that hit me like I was getting punched in the chest, because I had given up so much of my power. And I feel like, as a person, I have a lot to offer. And the question that resonates underneath that is, if you have so much to offer, why are you giving your so much to someone else's cause, as opposed to standing up for your own? And even as I say that, I find myself in a situation now where I'm doing the same thing, where I'm giving my power to someone else, as opposed to using my power for my own objectives. During the time, I was involved with this team of men called the men's team. They were the blood soldiers, which sounds a lot weirder than it is, but it was men who got together to hold each other to a masculine standard. These men, in hindsight, taught me so many lessons that I will take with me for the rest of my life. Not because they were harsh, not because they were cruel. There was some joking and jeering and a little bit of physical stuff now and again, but it wasn't anything inappropriate. They just called you to be your masculine self. Because the masculine self is the one that initiates, the one that goes on the calling. The voice that says, come out of where you are, come from your parents' house, come into the wilderness and live the adventure, is the divine masculine spirit. Conversely, the divine feminine spirit is the spirit that is most resilient. So when the masculine spirit encounters trouble and it recovers and continues on, that is the force of the feminine spirit. It is the force of the feminine spirit that brings out wisdom, that is considerate, that brings out community. And the thing of it is, you need that adventuring spirit that is willing to stand alone, and the resilient spirit that builds the community to support you on your journey. It is both spirits that come together that make it the distance. It is both spirits that come together that help make the world a better place. It is both the masculine and the feminine spirit that Elizabeth Tudor had embodied to lead England to its period of glory, where it was fixing itself economically and militarily, and the fruit of it was an era that would be the foundation of England's empire and England's cultural influence in the days to come. It is that same balance of energies that gave Martin the wisdom to be able to speak so clearly and the resilience to continue on in the face of conflict. And in the calling on his life and all of the things that had happened to bring him to a point where he was living his adventure. You need both. And the thing of it is, and what Greene articulates so well, is that all of us have a responsibility to steward the world that we live in now. And in today's day and age, we are more advanced economically, technologically, culturally, every way. We have gotten to a point where the world is as good as it's ever been. And in its goodness, we still have an opportunity, nay, a responsibility to make the world better. And it may not be the same way, because up until now, we have really advanced by pursuing better technologies. And we are on the brink of what I believe to be an emotional and cultural revolution that is happening, where we begin to see each other as people and celebrate our humanity in a way that betters everybody who is involved. If we can choose to remove ourselves from our own greed and selfishness and then give ourselves to the collective of things that need to be done on this planet and the people we need to take care of, and the less fortunate people whom we share this planet with, we can change the world into a place that is best for everyone. And when we take care of each other, and when we take care of the less unfortunate, the orphans, the widows, the wounded, the handicapped, those who are disabled, and bring everyone together, regardless of race, creeds, or status, then we will see a place where people are finally safe. Because the lack of safety is almost always based in some form of inequality. That diversity of ideas that propels us into a more technologically advanced future comes from the diversity of people at every social and economic status. And I'm not saying this because I'm a communist, nor am I even a socialist. But the fact of the matter is, when we take care of our people, life will get better. And I am down a rabbit hole right now, I've realized. But I realize that's also the power that's been given to me. And I have to see this entire thing to be able to say this and speak to this, because I know that the opposite is the downward pull. And if you're getting to the point where you have listened to all of these, and maybe you've read the book and you've thought about your own nature and human nature, then you are in a position of power. And with power comes responsibility. If you have stepped into your power by seeing the world from an elevated perspective, reconciling your life's events, integrating your shadow, taking all of your energies, you then have a choice to make. The first of which is, are you going to give up your power or are you not? And if you think that you are giving up your power, here's a check. If you don't take responsibility, when you don't take accountability, meaning you don't take the preemptive action or the reactive action, you have already surrendered your power. You cannot wield your power without responsibility and accountability. And then once you've decided that you are taking your power, you then must make the decision whether you will live for the betterment of people and all things that are good, or you're going to live for yourself or all things that are evil. Once you step into your power, you must make that choice, whether to live for good or to live for evil. And the choice that you make is going to be grounded in your character. And thus why character is such an important part of this book. It's an important part of human nature and is an important part of our story as humanity. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That was way down the rabbit trail, but I said everything I need to say. So let's get to why you should care. This is something that I love specifically about gyms. And CrossFit gyms are a little unique because you can go to 24-hour fitness or Planet Fitness or whatever, and you'll only push yourself to where you want to be. Unless you're one of those crazy people who just tries to break themselves all the time. And good for those people, because those are the people who are going to push themselves against their current reality. Fitness, particularly physical fitness, is the first and most direct challenge that most of us will face on a day-to-day. If you want to live your life physically comfortable, I would be willing to bet that you're not willing to take on the risk of jeopardizing your comfort mentally, emotionally, economically, interpersonally, at all. If you can't handle being challenged physically, how are you going to handle being challenged emotionally? If you can't handle being challenged physically, how are you going to be challenged when all your money is on the line? And the travesty of it is that if you choose to live a comfortable life physically, that does not prevent you from facing the challenges mentally, emotionally, economically. You're still going to have to face them. But here's the difference. When you belong to a gym, primarily a gym where you're getting good coaching, there's always someone there who's pushing you to be more. There's always someone there who says, hey, you don't have a pull-up right now, but I'm going to push you until you do. Hey, you know what? You can run a 5-minute mile. I'm going to push you until it's 4:30. Hey, I'm going to be, and this is what a coach is, the embodiment of there is an opportunity to be more, to fight harder, to be stronger, to step into the fullness of your potential. And not only am I going to challenge you, but I'm also going to guide you until you get there. And when a person is in the mindset where they can do that physically, then it becomes so much easier to do it emotionally. When you can face the challenge physically, it becomes easier to do it mentally and economically and in every form of your life. Because we're people. And typically, and this is what I got from the men's team, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And if you're lazy physically, I'm willing to bet that you're lazy emotionally. And if you're lazy emotionally, you're probably lazy mentally. And that's a sweeping generalization because there are exceptions, obviously. There are people who just can't do physical things, whether they don't have the time or they don't have the ability. But the easiest way to sharpen that resiliency, to pursue that strength, is physically. So, gyms, therefore, become incubators of greatness. And every person who walks through your door is carrying a version of themselves that they have yet to become. And they're carrying a capacity they have not tested and a calling that they have not answered. It is your job as the coach and the owner of the gym to empower the coaches to bring people into the best of themselves. And the environment that you create, the culture, the coaching, the community, is either going to be the thing that calls the version of them that the world needs into reality, and it gives them the opportunity to practice greatness, or it's going to be the thing that keeps the greatness buried. Greene argues that everyone has been given gifts, opportunities, and the space to develop, and therefore they carry a responsibility, a calling, if you will, a responsibility to steward what they have been given and to make life better for not only them, but their community and ultimately the world as a whole. So the CrossFit coach, those of you who push us to be great, the CrossFit coach who does their job well is fostering greatness in their people. It's more than just programming a workout. They are calling something forward in a human being that would have not come forward otherwise. And the member who found the community stopped being alone because of those coaches. And every time there's a challenge or someone is pushing through the pain to become something greater, a hero is cultivated. And the communities that these coaches build are the stepping off points that people can use to pursue greatness and the community that catches them when things get hard. Now, someone who's found that strength to become more than what they are is what you guys are in the business of doing. And that's important. I'm not gassing you up. And I'm not saying that just because it sounds good. Great people are oftentimes the people who had to face challenges. And in the world that is so soft, where challenges can easily be avoided, you find the people who want to be better and you help them be better. And that does echo down their lives. Every one of these moments is an act of making the world better. It may be small in scale, but it is enormous in consequence. Because the person who becomes stronger, more resilient, more connected, more committed takes that everywhere, to their families, to their work, to their community. Therefore, the CrossFit gym is not just the destination. It's the preparation ground for everything that comes after it. And the internal call to be greater than what you are, the call to take responsibility, to have adventure, to push past what you think was your limit, that's not just a CrossFit phenomenon. That is the essence of adventure being expressed at its highest level. And that starts with you. That was quite a bit. So, the person who leads from the place, that place, the gym owner, the coach, who has done the internal work, who leads from authenticity rather than armor or ambition, the person who creates the environment where people can be their full selves, the person who makes them want to follow, not through command, but through example, and through the force of being genuinely and fully, completely themselves, is the coach that creates the world where these people become great. And that's what Queen Elizabeth did. That's what Martin Luther King did. And that is what every person in history who cultivated an environment where people wanted to follow them did. They created a place where people can experience the fullness of their own power. And that is available to you in your gym every day. So, to recap, Greene calls this law, make them want to follow you. And his argument is this, that the person who has done the internal work from the previous laws is the person that the world will be drawn to follow. They get their influence not because they command it or coerce it, but because they embody something that the people recognize as real. Queen Elizabeth refused to be sorted into a category, and she integrated every energy available to her. She led for 45 years, and when she died, they wept because they loved her. We are fortunate simply to exist on the planet in the day and age that we do. And that fortune carries a responsibility. And with that responsibility, we are called to steward what we have been given, to make life better for ourselves and the people around us. We are also be held accountable to what we do with this opportunity. And you need the responsibility and the accountability in order to face your power. And the opposite of that, the person who takes the fortune of this existence and turns it inward. Put plainly, you're acting like a grown-up, spoiled child. The question that this law asks is not complicated. What person is a person that does not make the world better? You were born with power. Every system that you have ever lived inside has asked you to give that away. And we're taught to give that power away. Will that be to the government? Some people it's to the church. A lot of people it's to their companies. Some people it's to their families. Most people it's to their spouses. The question is, are you going to take your power back? Because the world does not need more people who simply comply. It needs more people who lead. And more people who lead from the fullness of who they actually are. This has been a fun one for me, and quite controversial at that. So, my name is Colin Charles. You can find me at Enoch Marketing. Click below if you want to get to know more about us. Follow us on our website. If you want to talk more about how you can integrate this into your business, you can always talk to us. We're not going to charge you to talk to us. That'd be weird. But you can follow us below. If you'd like to schedule a call, if you want to figure out more ways we can market your business and make it so that you are influencing more people, give us a call. And until then, have a great day.